Okay. For those who are very new to meditation, well done, sitting for 30 minutes. It's something that those who practice for a long time can take for granted. But I certainly remember when I began sitting meditation, I remember doing 10 minutes and then feeling like, yes, I reached the 10-minute mark successfully, and then sort of expanding out from there. When I first began with a couple of teachers, they were married teachers, and one of the teachers said, sit for 10 minutes, and I said, okay, and then I asked the other teacher, and they said, no, you should sit for at least 30 minutes. I'm like, oh, okay. So then I had my beginning, and I had my goal, and 30 minutes is that's a good length of time. Traditionally, it's about the time it takes a stick of incense to burn down. That's how meditation periods used to be measured often in temples or in monasteries, nunneries. You light a stick of incense and you sit until that incense disappears. You may notice when we come into a period of meditation, mind is naturally sometimes a little bit half in the door. We're coming in and we're sitting down. There's maybe a little lag there while we sit down. There's some processing that goes on as body-mind settles down, and that can take 5 or 10 minutes to take place. And then you enter that sort of middle time of meditation period where might be more deeply involved in the sitting. And then as time ebbs on there, maybe get into 20, 25, maybe you might get that thought in your head that says, I wonder how long's gone. And depending on your vantage point in the room or at home, you may make a little glance at the clock and see what's going on there, and you're like, okay, got 10 minutes left. I can do that, right? So I began with just talking about it being the basis of our practice to sit in meditation at Yokoji at the Zen Center. Last week finished a 7-day retreat, which was the first retreat of the fall training season there. Long retreat, and it was disrupted by COVID. There was some people at the beginning, someone who got COVID, a few people who got potentially exposed and had to quarantine. So it was very bare bones, just a few people, some kind of battlefield promotions with people having to do new things that they weren't, fully trained for. One way or another, kind of made it work, but it felt like it was a little bit seat of the pants. And I was doing a lot of teaching because the abbot there, Tenshin, who I trained with for many years, he was in his quarantine. One thing that really struck me, even with all of the more chaos than usual, more moving parts than usual, is the clarity and the stillness of mind that just inexorably takes place if you put the time in on the cushion of a time into meditation. No matter how many things were going on, particularly after a couple of days, just through the practice and the process of a lot of sitting practice, the mind naturally begins to become much more open and settled, and clarity becomes more apparent. Now, in the Zen tradition, a big part of the Zen tradition is working one-on-one with people. It's like you sit a lot, then a lot of things tend to come up, which need to be expressed and dealt with. Some things quickly, some things over long years. And a common thread that you'll see is that for most of us, people are often very absorbed in the circumstances of their lives and relationships, family, people, and things. Like that's driving a lot of the content, right? So when we approach meditation and we're sitting, it's not a time to work those things out. Right? Although those things may appear in the mind, like the complications of our lives and whatever the content is that's preoccupying us, the practice of meditation is to allow an unfolding without adding to or moving things around or becoming involved in that content. Right? There's at the Zen Center there at Yokoji, where Little Pitch will be having a retreat, Long Beach retreat up there next month. There's woods and forest, and it's in a very kind of rugged and a natural environment. And there's well-worn paths around the place and some open areas that you can walk. There's also some less known paths around the place. Some made by the deer, and some made by more of the introverted variety of residents we have over the years. You know, I had a good friend who lived up there for years, who made her own path to the meditation hall. That kind of went, it was adjacent to it's like, here's a freeway, and then you know the street on the road you can take, you know. And she would use that to not have to get into conversation or see people and take that. And then the deer started using that path. You know, sometimes we make a path, the deer follow it, sometimes you follow the deer path. And when you walk into the forest there, you tend to make, you know, human noise walking through, cracking twigs, birds fly off, maybe some deer see you and like, whoa, they're coming to, you know, and a deer run off, and, you know, you make your way. There's many places there, but you walk a little way and you'll find these bare rocks of granite, right? Which you just, and some of them make like nice places to sit and take a pause, and, you know, you may have a favorite place down here maybe at the beach or at the, you know, I like to make the projection that you're all at the beach all the time. You know, I know that's probably not accurate, you know, but whether at the beach or at the park, like a favorite spot where you can sit and be quiet for a period of time. If you do that in the forest environment, and you sit down and you're still, then your immediate environment starts to become much more alive. You may like look down and notice, whoa, look at that, there's this like highway of ants. I had no idea. Big highway of ants like going past over here. And it like what do we call stink bugs, those black, they got the worst names. Whoever called them stink bugs, right? The most beautiful big black bugs, you know, we get a lot of those there walking around. And if you sit still, you start to see things come alive around. And then if you're still and quiet, then the birds realize you're not, and the squirrels realize you're not a threat. And they start to come back, right? And if you continue to sit and you continue to be quiet, then with a little bit of time, even the deer will start to come back in and walk really close. It's the same way in here. It's the same way in the practice of meditation with our own nature. Right? The practice of the method is to be still, quiet, look. Or still, quiet, and be in contact with, whether that's looking, listening, and feeling, in order to experience and see what is here in the immediacy of our environment, rather than being kind of preoccupied with our thoughts and our relationships and our, you know, all of the complications that we're running through the mind. We allow that to fall away, and then for our life as it's unfolding directly now to just be revealed and experienced as it is. Then it doesn't matter if you sat in Bayshore Church, sat at home, or sat in the woods a couple of hours away in the mountains. right? The content in itself, whether it's a trail of ants or a car blowing its horn on the street, is not so important, right? But what is important is to be still, quiet, and engaged enough for that present environment to be revealed and experienced. Now the mind, like our brains and the way that we operate, because we're often so caught up with things and busy all of the time, then our eye and our mind is often drawn to things which captivate attention or entertain. Right, our phones are like what, all of the apps in the world. Everything is Netflix. Everything's out there competing for eyeballs and clicks. It wants our attention. So when we come to meditation and when we're sitting for long periods, we can feel like maybe there's not so much here to see or experience, and so the brain will be like, well, let me just conjure up some stuff for you to think about then. To fill the tape so that there's something to be involved in. That's where the discipline and the practice and the focus of meditation is really, really important. It's like a value system that we have over what is interesting or not. Like often as human beings, we find our own thoughts fascinating. No one else does, but we find our own thoughts, that seems important. What I think about this is important, right? But usually when we're sitting here, not so important, right? But it's like what's going on with the sound of a silence of this mat and cushion in front of me, not very important. But our practice of sitting meditation is to take out the preference and the value system over what's important content. Right? And to then blur the line between what we may feel is important internal content and then external content. So that we can sit as the one who just witnesses and experiences what is so. There's a quote, and I try not to use my phone for this, but I didn't print it. So a short quote, Ajahn Chah. I think Victor brought it up some months ago. I bring it up again here. Ajahn Chah said, "Try to be mindful and let things take their natural course. Then your mind will become still in any surroundings, like a clear forest pool. All kinds of wonderful, rare animals will come to drink at the pool, and you will clearly see the nature of all things. You will see many strange and wonderful things come and go, but you will be still. This is the happiness of the Buddha." So he put it in a very nice way, which sort of complements, I hope, what I'm talking about that sitting in the forest environment. To be the pool in this case for what he calls the clear forest pool. Here, be the container for everything that is being experienced. We spend so much time contracted into the sense of an I-me identity, which is always negotiating with trying to negotiate with reality, the I-me sense, right? Wins here, has a few wins here and there, but usually a lot of second prizes with reality kind of winning out. So we don't focus so much on that sense of me, I, particularly in meditation. Let that be put aside and rather be the clear lens that allows awareness to experience itself. That awareness is what we all are in our essence. We're all that without a doubt. Everyone here, everyone online, everyone here. It's the same root awareness. We see that when we see one another and we look at each other in the eyes. There's a commonality, there's a common root. We all have a different history, a different conditioning, a different story, a different karma, right? Which then brings in difference. But our practice is to let go of the differences and return to what the root and the shared awareness of the experience of shared awareness. That one that is always awake and aware is the same awareness of the Buddha, awake and aware. That is the nature of Buddha. What he says, Ajahn Chah says, then you will know like the stillness of the Buddha. You know, the Buddha's been sitting this whole time, right? That slight smile on his face. He's like, thank goodness now I'm made out of wood, my knees don't hurt anymore, right? But the Buddha's able to sit all of the time. As human beings, right, at least for the 30 minutes that we practice, we can be Buddhas, at least for that amount of time. Sit and be a Buddha. You know, you might be we may be a confused or tired or cranky Buddha, but we're still Buddhas. But the sitting meditation is functioning as a foundation for the rest of our practice of our lives. That's what's the most important. It's like, how are we navigating and experiencing this incredibly curious, profound mystery that we're all involved in, this mystery of life that we're all living. You know, I'm never, is there a time where I'm just not smacked upside the head by the profound mystery of that? It's just like, oh wow, look, I'm here. I'm still here. This. It's extraordinary. You know, our sitting practice and meditation practice brings us awake to the reality of all of our life. There's this. You know, the tendency as a human being is to lose that present and direct experience and contract into an idea of life, like we put a different lens of me that's experiencing life. Now, there's a teacher in the Zen tradition, in the Rinzai Zen tradition, Master Hakuin, who I want to say 16th century or 17th century, give or take 100 years. He was a major figure in Japanese Zen, an extraordinary, considered a national treasure as an artist too in Japan, as a painter, as a calligrapher. And he said, Zazen, which is Zen meditation, right? So meditation, Zazen in the midst of everyday activity is 1,000,000 times more useful than useless sitting. Right? And some people pick that quote up, and I would say misinterpret it so much as to say, you don't need to do sitting meditation. That's just useless, waste of time just sitting there. Let's get on with doing Zen in the midst of everyday life. But Hakuin said, useless sitting. Right? What is useless sitting? We may find in a practice of meditation that once we can learn to sit still for a period of time. We can meditate for 30 minutes. But a tendency can kind of creep in where it's almost like knocking it into autopilot. It's just like, okay, you know, or putting it in neutral. I can sit, but there's not much real engagement with the practice. There's just letting the practice happen, and that can feel like a little dissatisfying, or is this all there is in this? Can kind of creep into our practice. Many of you more experienced, I think, will resonate this with a kind of like a stage of practice, right? And then the sitting perhaps isn't so rich. The early gains of meditation practice are in the rearview mirror. And now it's like, well, what am I really doing with this sitting? Hakuin said, Zazen of a practice of Zen meditation in the midst of everyday activity. At his temple, other Zen temples, the practice of meditation is a I was going to say a dawn till dusk activity, but really it's a 24/7, 365, never closed activity. Right here at the beginning, we have the meditation of parking and finding our way in through the door. The meditation of doing in next case, doing the tech setup, the meditation of setting out the mats and the cushions and the chairs. The preparation, putting the kettle out and the donation box. Little plug for the donation box, right? Then the meditation begins. Now, once we have some instruction and strike the bell, is that now okay? Now it's really meditation? But no, now that's just moving into sitting meditation. It's just simple. A different meditation is now taking a certain form. Sitting meditation is so vaunted and held up as our foundation practice because it's now okay. Now it's like a kind of no excuse practice for meditation. There's nothing else to do. The chairs have been put out. Things have been taken care of. There's nothing. Now all of the effort, all of the attention is just in stillness and doing nothing extra. And for human beings, often that's difficult for us. We're wired towards what is the next thing, using this moment in time as a springboard to the next moment in time. So sitting meditation disrupts that. So it's the core practice is meditation in stillness and in sitting. But then as soon as that sitting ends, meditation doesn't end. If we translate what that is, dhyana in Sanskrit, a meditation, a chan, which became the word Zen, it is contemplative absorption in present experience. It's a contemplative absorption in present experience in sitting looks like this, right? But contemplative absorption in the meditation of driving on the 405 looks like this, and checking the mirror and checking everything else. So it's meditation doesn't end, but rather that wakeful present engagement moves seamlessly. It doesn't move, really. That's wrong, but it's ultimately is seamlessly expressed in every activity that's taking place. But that takes practice. I can raise that up as a principle. Ultimately, meditation is all things, from brushing the teeth to arguing with the spouse, or whatever in between. Meditation is all things. What the sitting practice and this mindful awareness does is allows us to live and to rest in a vast container of present awareness. It's a container, but it's not like Tupperware. You don't see the edges. Call it a container, but it has no edge. It has no size. But if we can be present, awake, and aware, then naturally we can align with the present activity and then respond appropriately to whatever that activity is. Then you can take more of the sense of refuge and rest, just being yourself. Which is one of the most wonderful, perhaps the most wonderful gift that we can give to ourselves, is the permission to be ourselves. Fully to be ourselves. I don't mean that in a kind of hallmark be yourself way. If you're being yourself and you're just blundering through life like an asshole, maybe not be yourself. Take some feedback and don't be that self, right? But right, so we're doing this within a world where we're constantly receiving feedback and making adjustment. right? So it's not be ourself as some fixed, identified, this is me, and the world and everything is going to have to correspond to this identity. Not that self, but be the self, be the one that you are, be myself, the one that is also the room, the walls, the sky, the beach, the forest, the cars, the environment that's all around, including people and things. But this requires persistence and an inquiring nature. You know, you got to kind of want to do it in Dharma practice, you know. And then when you don't want to do it anymore, you have to keep on doing it to go through that don't want to do it anymore. Right? In order to just curiously and ironically arrive at the very beginning, all over again. It's always been this way since I was this tall, right? It's always been this. What am I looking for? Who am I trying to become? What am I aiming for? You know, those things become secondary, and the fullness and the richness and the fleeting preciousness of this experience is what is realized. What is realized. That way we can come into a room like this, and you know, here, we can't see on Zoom, but here at the church, the beautiful stained glass windows have now, I hope they're getting some new ones. You know, I'm not sure what's going. But presently, it's just chipboard or whatever that is, right? That's just some OSB. That's right. Yeah, some OSB has been tacked up on there for now, and yet that's just fine. It's doing its job. This is our present environment. It's for, you know, I could sit here and be like, oh, I really miss the stained glass windows, and my experience has now been diminished by that fact. But what a shame that would be. You know, we can make a joke and say like, well, I don't like these windows as much as the last ones. And yet this OSB is my life. Everything here is my life. It's our life. It's not my life. There's no commodity there. There's no ownership or possession of this. We're all sharing this one life. And ultimately, we're all coming and going in this one life. And if we can, the more that, you know, that we enter in over and over again. If you find it, if you're ever in the meditation and you find it boring, then that is a wonderful gate for the Dharma. It's just dive head first through the gate of boredom and see just how bored you can be until you wear it out. Same with any energy that comes up. Just allow it, welcome it even. You know, sometimes when I say welcome it, there's things that don't you know, that's maybe going a little too far, but just allow it. Allow everything as it is, internally, externally, to be just as it is. It is, after all, as it is. You know, if we pick and choose in life, then we're always somewhat in a tussle with reality, and that's where suffering arises from. You know, I had pretty good definition of enlightenment or realization that said enlightenment is full cooperation with reality. Right? That's maybe so. It's a little it's a little dualistic, you and because ultimately it's not we're cooperating with reality. There's just life. There's just life. There's this. You know, and our practice, you know, we're talking earlier, we began with a board member pitch, right? It's like, as a community, as practitioners, you know, we value this opportunity. It's a rare thing, it's a curious thing that it's so rare that the practice of coming together to sit still and quiet for a period of time, it seems to be such a radical activity. And yet, the more that I practice it, you see that, wow, as a human being, This is an essential activity. An essential activity. You know, it doesn't have to be an essential activity for 30 minutes or for things, but just to be present, to be awake and aware, to function well then, to see life as it is and to be able to respond appropriately is the sure navigation.